It's been a while since I've been kicked over an execution. So, we have a bit of a controversial clip here. I've seen this clip a couple days ago, but still, it seems like the comments, nobody can really agree on if this was a rightful or justified kick. Now, this is an assault player. So, whenever I see an assault player get kicked, I am normally questioning a few things. One, how much were they contributing to the team? Sometimes you see assault players get kicked for some silly reasons, so I just wanted to make sure that this assault player specifically is doing their job, which I can pretty much guarantee that they were. I think the second thing here that is a factor is making sure you aren't stealing executions. So this is definitely going to be a pretty interesting clip because a lot of people are a little bit divided on this one. Yeah, let's go into it. Let's see if this kick was justified. All right, so we're taking off. Big slam on the Bivor. I'd like to see that. Now, they do have a Vanguard here. They do have a Sniper. The Vanguard has a mortal wound. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, this player's full health. Yep, both these players are half health, and they go for an execution here. Okay, let's take a look at this execution. This was pretty easy to avoid, to be completely honest. Like, yeah, he goes directly into this execution. The reason I'm pointing this out is because the Vanguard most likely needed healing. Well, actually, wait, hold on. It wasn't the Vanguard who needed healing, it was a Sniper. The Vanguard has a Guardian Relic. So yeah, I'm assuming they have unmatched zeal here, 100%. And he was kicked. Now, let's go back here. Big slam on the Bivor. They're able to isolate this, so this execution is pretty easy to get for anybody here. The Vanguard getting the attack right there. This is definitely an assault player who did not pay attention to the team perks or their teammates' health. However, considering this circumstance here, I think the Sniper, if they were using Purification, they still should be more than fine enough for the next engagement. Or at the very least until they find a stim. Or the next Extremist spawn, right? So, yep, this is obviously a black screen because they have been kicked, and right there, kicked from the squad. So, this person made a post about them being kicked over an execution, but I just want to, point out here, this is clearly getting kicked because you are hogging this execution. Maybe you're obviously... maybe this wasn't the first time in this operation. I think if this... Okay, let's play some circumstances here. If this was the only time this player took an execution, I do think this kick is unwarranted. Honestly, the kick is unwarranted overall. However, if this was like the first time they had the execution and they took healing from a teammate and they were immediately kicked, if this was the first time, I would say these two players are being a little bit unreasonable. However, if this was like the fifth or sixth time this happened, yeah, sheesh. Unfortunately, I do think the kick here, I don't, okay, look, I don't think it was warranted. I don't think it was justified. I don't think you should kick players if they steal 5 executions from you from healing. However, am I surprised that this player was kicked because of this? No. Not at all. Certain players have less patience than other players, so you can't really just guarantee that, hey, you know what? We got the execution. The person who needed healing, they didn't get healing, but it's okay. Some players don't see it that way, especially here. It seems like these two players probably were queued up together. Maybe they are friends or something, and they probably had the discussion, if this assault player gets one more execution when we need healing, we're going to kick him. That's what I'm getting at here, because this kick was pretty much instant speed. So, if I wasn't too clear, I will reiterate myself here. Should this assault player have been kicked? No. However, should he have been paying attention to the team perks to avoid this situation? Yes. So, unfortunately, I do think this kick, whether it was justified or not, it was definitely on its way. It was definitely on its way. This player was definitely going to get kicked eventually for stealing executions. I just hope this wasn't the only one because that's a little bit unreasonable. But if you have somebody on your team who's just continuously stealing extremist executions without paying attention to team perks, this is like the new frustrating thing for me, to be completely honest. People just not paying attention to team perks at all. They will have the team perk, but they do not care that somebody has unmatched zeal. They will continuously take executions that may not be for them. So, I don't think this player should have been kicked. However, I'm not surprised that they were. And I would like to add, this may be a lot more common with players who are teaming up together and are obviously looking for some heals. So, if you don't want this to happen to you, make sure you pay attention to the team perks, make sure you're playing around them, make sure you are also maintaining your overall teammates' health in the way that you can leave a Biovore execution that is free here for the players that needed the healing. Sheesh. Alright, so this player does kind of defend themselves a little bit in this post, so we will read, but I will admit this execution was avoidable. You did not need to take this execution. This definitely could have been healing for your teammates. Yeah, you can see his health bar as well just go up a little bit. So, yeah, to avoid this, guys, seriously, I can't say this enough. This was only one enemy. This execution should have went to the sniper. And this player was kicked because they weren't playing as a team member. They're playing pretty selfishly, and that's why they were kicked. It was not over an execution. It was over the fact that they did not pay attention to their teammates' team perks or care about the sniper getting healing. So, man, sometimes if you play selfishly, sometimes it comes back, and it comes back to bite you. The funny thing is that I actually noticed my teammate was missing their armor as soon as I did the execution and felt bad about it. I mean, at least they know. At least they know that the execution wasn't 100% necessary. It's just that I get very intent on killing Biovores when they spawn. Nah, I understand that. I understand that completely. But sometimes you just gotta take a moment to, understand the situation. And yeah, if you see an extremist spawn there, you have unmatched zeal, they are stim packs. It's actually really hard to stop myself from executing while doing melee attacks with a controller. I mean, fair, but still, I think the excuse really dies at the point where we're kind of pointing out that you should be more concerned with having your teammates have health. I've been on the receiving end of this, and it can be annoying, but I guess I'm just asking people to be a little bit more understanding. We weren't even in the middle of a big wave or anything. No, okay, I do agree with that. I don't think the kick was necessary. I'll say that much. I don't think it was necessary, unless this happened like 5 or 6 times. So the way they're describing this, it does kind of feel like maybe this happened once or twice down the line, and then the Biovore. So I don't know. Maybe they are overreacting a little bit. However, I still just want to, have the example that people really, especially in high difficulties, people really aren't the most patient, the most patient with players that aren't paying attention. Because it is the highest difficulty. You should definitely understand unmatched zeal. I don't think the kick was necessary unless they really just didn't get it through their head that they needed healing. The sniper needed healing. With this post, they were missing armor. He points out they were missing armor. He didn't really point out anything about their health bar. And it's really not like their health bar was so low that they needed the healing or they couldn't survive a fight. But still, again, I definitely think you're testing your teammates' patience a little bit too hard here. That sniper, obviously it wasn't in the middle of a big wave or anything, but that's why it was that much more avoidable. Yeah, the sniper definitely should have gotten the execution there. There were definitely teammates who were communicating, and that was so fast, I genuinely think they were talking to themselves like, hey, if the assault player steals another execution, we're going to kick him. So this is definitely a PSA in a sense. Pay attention to the team perks. Pay attention to the health bars. Make sure the teammates you have are healing themselves through unmatched zeal. Don't steal their executions. The kick was probably a bit excessive in the moment, but I also understand that after 600 plus hours of my own playtime, a lot of people are repeat offenders for this situation because of their conditioning to just execute without thinking about it. And I have a little patience for that when it happens more than twice in a session. It's fine when everyone is topped off, but it becomes grating rather quickly when you're watching you or another's free heal get taken by someone who especially didn't need it. Yeah, it's exactly what I was kind of detailing out there. It basically all comes down to patience. Like, of course, if this was like the one time it happened, if he got kicked for this, I think it would be a little excessive. I agree. However, yeah, once it keeps happening, that means they are deliberately, or not deliberately, but in a sense it is, they are effectively ignoring the team perks. That's unfortunate. That's definitely something that can put you in a situation that you don't want to be in because you have a teammate who is stealing executions that should have been healing for the rest of the team. Fully justified. You absolutely stole that. Not only were your teammates fighting it more than you were, but they needed the health far more than you did. So I didn't really see if the teammates were fighting it more than them, but interesting metric nonetheless. You might think it's a little excessive, but you don't know the other two players. They might be sick of greedy players stealing executions. Now, I feel like this is a fair point to make. The assault player was definitely testing his teammates' patience with that one, 100%. If that happened more than, a couple times, I imagine that kick was definitely ready to go. However, we definitely have a pretty interesting discussion here. We have somebody kind of push back on this point. So let's take a look at both sides here and really break down if we can play around this a little bit better than what we saw in the clip. Does it matter? It's a single execute during a high difficulty mode that has multiple extremist enemies. Fair point. I definitely think that's a fair point. One of them had a relic. Yes, one of them did have a relic. And both were within an acceptable range to stim to full health. I agree. Be better, brother. Okay. I agree with everything besides be better, brother, because ultimately, I still think there's something to learn here about making sure you're playing around team perks and how important, and then not only that, how annoying it can be for people to ignore that. So, I mean, I think it goes both ways, to be completely honest. If this execution really wasn't that big of a deal, then the kick isn't warranted. I agree with that. But it can be, I think, is the argument, is that the sniper could have walked into a Terminus fight with half health for no reason. Let's just, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. After that encounter, you definitely, depending on the difficulty, you definitely get a chance to spawn a Terminus at the rail station part of that operation. It's before the elevator to get to the actual train. Yeah, you can get like a Neurothrope, Carnifex spawn there. It can definitely be an issue. Now, if I'm playing Sniper and I'm jumping in at that fight at half health, now I'm a little bit more annoyed by that past execution because my purification should be able to go farther, and now it's not going to go as far. So I think it's very little about that one circumstance and more about the repeatedness of the assault player stealing executions, maybe. But also, I want to point out that this still puts the team in a rather detrimental point for no reason. This was highly avoidable. That is where I think the issue arises, is that it was incredibly easy to avoid if they were paying attention and if they just, took a look at their teammates for a second. Except it can and routinely does matter. I've lost count of the number of times I've been messed over because a teammate stole the last execution in an encounter, and stims aren't always a guarantee, yeah, especially in higher difficulties. Meanwhile, an unmatched Zeal execution is guaranteed 30% heal. Yeah, no, for real. This person said be correct, brother. I don't know. I think both these commenters are making good points, but I still think it is more appropriate to just be a little bit more responsible with how you are playing. I don't really like the whole, like, oh, don't worry, there will be another extremist. It's like, okay, that's not the point, though. The point is, this execution that you took was unnecessary. Do you or do you not understand that so we can avoid this moving forward? It's not about, oh, there's another extremist that I can just take from you. You know what I mean? So it's less about the actual circumstance and more about the, comprehending the situation and making sure that you and your teammates can get the most out of unmatched zeal. It's really less about the amount of healing there is and more about how they're actually playing around that healing. So if the player who's stealing executions doesn't care to stop doing that, then yes, it becomes an issue. then it becomes an issue. So yeah, make sure when you see unmatched zeal, make sure you aren't stealing any unnecessary executions. I will say, if this happened in the heat of battle, I would be more willing to ignore it. The fact that it was an isolated Biovore, it was basically just a stim pack just sitting there. And yeah, the player with full health not only took it, but also used it immediately while at full health. So yeah, that's a little bit frustrating. I can understand that. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. Do you think this kick was justified? Do you think there's another way they could have played around it? Do you think the two players who kicked the assault player, do you think they were just not having it that day? A little bit of patience can go a far way, but you still need to understand the mistake so you can avoid the mistake moving forward. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. Thanks for watching.